From Los Angeles and Nashville, get ready to go behind the scenes with Entertainment Dudes. What happens when you pair a director, a voice actor in a world, and some of the most interesting people in entertainment? You're about to find out.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another episode of Entertainment Dudes. We're excited that you're joining us. Really looking forward to having our guest on today. And
What's
I know
that?
that you're
What's
you're
that?
Gonna be, what is that?
Do you hear the ocean?
I do. I hear Surfside. I hear the Surfside. You know what?
Yes.
I think we're gonna have somebody from. Hey!
Hello.
Guys, this is Kim Dwinell. Dwinell? This
Dwinell.
Is
You got it, Dwinell.
Yes. See,
Dwinell.
the first time. She's an author and an incredibly talented individual who is the author of Surfside Girls and who also is who has a new show on Apple TV.
Paddle out again? Race you the next one. I love Surfside. It's a little strange. My dad says you're never too old to use your imagination.
You're also never too young to use your brain. Look, this coin is element 79, also known as gold, the cursed treasure. I don't know about cursed, but this is definitely treasure.
You know, I should actually have the here. Hang on a second. Hang on. I'm going to be professional.
All right.
Yes.
Bum, 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 bum,
And of course,
bum,
I grabbed them in French. Okay.
There we go.
Surfside Girls.
Oui.
Books.
Le
Okay,
Romanet Conti.
Surfside Girls.
Can you hold it a little closer to the camera? I want to see. This
Apologies.
is great.
This is the French version, but it's what I
No,
grabbed.
it's okay.
Oh, cool.
C'est
Nice.
très bien. Je peux penser aussi.
La
Baguette.
Romanet Conti restera, je m'en
Hey.
Okay.
Yes. I've got a second book, and then I've got a third book. So this is the series.
On deux, trois.
The meeting of myself and Jason in the weirdest of all circumstances.
Yes. Can you show the inside of them? Because that's what I thought was fascinating. Because what I thought, I saw a book. I'm like, oh, it's a book. It's not a book. It's a book, but it's the entire is a graphic novel. The entire thing.
Amazing.
Yes. And a very beachy.
Great.
We get to some beachier scenes. Yes. Yes. Out in the ocean, kayaks and surfboards.
Yeah, and this is based a lot on your story, right? I mean, is it you? The characters are based on kind of how you grew up, or like
100%. Like this would be me, and going backward, this would be my best friend Melissa. When we were 13 and learning to surf, taking our surfboards to the beach on the bus. Yes.
That's so awesome.
Thinking that maybe if we learned to surf, boys would talk to us. There's always got to be a motivation. And when I'm like, let's do, and bam, forget about it. I fell in love with the surf. And my whole life,
Yeah, I lived. It's so fun because I grew up on the East Coast, and I'm from Maine, and my family's from an island off the coast of Maine, Vinyl Haven, and I grew up on the ocean, and just that smell in the morning and the way that the air feels, and if I leave the ocean, it's wild how if I'm driving, I can just set. I'm like, there's water nearby, there's like a huge lake nearby, there's an ocean, there's something, right? and Sure enough, they're like, yeah, we have a huge lake right over here,
right.
or like, yeah,
Florida
the ocean.
Keys here.
Senses are tingling.
Yeah, the Florida Keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's mine.
Yeah, we grew up. My buddies and I, one of my best friends, Joe, and I, we used to go down. We go down to the ocean. We'd make these traps and catch a bunch of crabs. And we do tidal pool surfing, and and then ended up doing some lobstering for a while. So I just absolutely love the sea, and it's an affinity that never goes away. It just stays there, and I long for it. If I'm away for too long, I'm like, I have to go to the ocean.
Well, you know what we say, getting your gills wet, right? And I feel the same way. Like we bumped up the time for this because I'm like, shoot, I got to get in the ocean first. But I'm like, okay, I'll go after, because after a while, like I'm like drying out. I got to get back in the water. I got to get my gills wet, and it's really cute to hear the girls say it in the TV show.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that came from me.
It's so wild. How wild is it seeing the character that you created come to life like that? And I don't know. It just, what's that like seeing that?
Well, we were talking a little bit before the show. It's weird. It's weird on like a million levels. Like, first of all, you have an idea in your head, right? And then I write and illustrate this book, and I get them out, in public. And And all of a sudden other people know my characters. And that's step one of it being weird, because, you know, when it's out in the world and you see posts about things that were just in your head,
Right.
it's sort of like when your kid goes to preschool and comes back singing stuff that you didn't teach them. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is a weird experience for me. So that was step one. And then, you know, I kind of get used to that. Like people, you see it in libraries and people are talking about it.
Right.
But then I get to go up to set when they start shooting this thing. And I'm headed toward the food truck and I see Sam and Jade walking toward me. And I kid you not, because I screamed. I started screaming like this. And they looked at me and they thought, well, she's got to be the author, because like no one else. They ran over and they're hugging me and we're jumping up and down. And I'm like, you're real. You're real. What else do you say? I mean, honestly, how many people get to have this experience?
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. And how I met you at the, what was the name of the SEAL?
It was the Marine Mammal Care
MMCC.
Center in San Pedro. They do that cute little event every year.
Yeah, it's amazing. So they do a little fundraiser because they rescue seals off the coast, and then they have a center where they take care of the seals, and they release them when they're well enough, if they ever get well enough to go back to the environment. And, you know, they have booths that go by and you're checking out all these booths. And I hear the same thing. I suddenly hear this sort of quasi scream. And I'm looking at, I see this beautiful booth with this gorgeous banner, this, you know, these books everywhere. And I have my daughter with me. And and she says, "Oh my gosh, you're her." And so I have a picture I want to share because we took a picture.
Share that bizarre magical.
Yes.
Yeah, that is uncanny.
Yeah. I literally see, and she's, if you can't really tell, she is literally wearing the same thing. She walks
Look
by
at that.
And her hair's swinging and she's got the little freckle nose and she's wearing the same things. And I just, again, start to scream. And I'm like, look.
I mean, how is that?
That's wild.
How is that even possible? That exact hair, shorts, everything like that.
Right?
So,
and what's even weirder, because that's not weird enough, that remains one of my favorite photos. Like I'll post these on my little Surfside Girls Facebook page, or all the little fan photos. And then to be at tiny little Long Beach Comic Con, and I'm sitting there, and then you come up with your phone and show me the picture of your daughter. And then wheels are turning, and I'm like, not making sense. Why does he have this photo? What?
I said, that's my daughter. So we had a booth that was just down from you at at Long Beach Comic Con. So we got to share the weekend together, which was really, really fun. And seeing people interact with you and how much they loved the story. The first time I was there were some people who were learning, like, oh, what's this? You know, and you know, you're signing the book, and then that time people were like, oh, I love this book. You know, they knew it, they recognized it. So it was really fun for me experiencing that transition. First of all, how did you come up with the idea? Then how did you get people to notice this book? And then you told me the story about the pitch, which was fascinating to me completely. And that was a first for you, right? In terms of actually seeing that pitch. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of why did you decide to make a graphic novel, and how did you come up with your stories?
Boy, okay. You know, how much time do you have?
27 minutes, 38 seconds.
Okay. I started out in animation. I knew, so it was The Little Mermaid for me. I saw The Little Mermaid and I thought to myself,
oh yeah,
it's what I want to do with my life. It's under the sea, right? And I'm a surfer girl. And so I was in school for illustration at Cal State Fullerton, and I managed, because of like my superpower is timing, I managed to get like sucked up into that second golden wave of 2D animation that happened. There, like The Lion King got released, and then everyone in Hollywood wanted an animation studio. So I got hired onto The Swan Princess. I worked on Cats Don't Dance for Turner Feature Animation, and then transitioned onto Hercules, and then Mulan, and then Tarzan, and a little bit of Emperor's New Groove at Disney. So that was sort of like my baptism into the art world. And when you're 23, 25, and you're working 60-hour weeks, 70-hour weeks, and you're crashing out in your cubicle floor, it's all very romantic, right? Like that's so much fun. Not so much fun now, but that's kind of right. So I used that as my as like a university. I took all the classes that it would offer, the figure sculpting, the figure drawing classes, background painting. When I wasn't working, I was trying to learn stuff.
Yeah.
And all animation studios run classes as well, figure drawing at lunch to keep your skills sharp. So then knowing that, like,
Because as if you weren't drawing enough already,
No,
like, you need more drawing.
you do. But you know what they say about artists? We can hold our egos in a teaspoon, right? So everyone's like, oh, I gotta get better. I gotta get better. And so there's this drive.
I had not heard that.
Maybe
That's
that's
funny.
my own psychosis. I don't know.
No, I like it.
So anyway, I left animation after a while. I wanted to start a family. I knew that 70-hour weeks and you know, having an infant maybe weren't so compatible. So back to grad school. And I've got I remember clearly the day we're running around the borders across the street from my house with my little guy, and he's got his blueberry muffin, which was his thing. He's like a toddler. And I come upon a book called Blankets, put out by Top Shelf by Craig Thompson. And it's like 500 pages in brush pen. And I had never seen anything like this in my life. I'm like, what is this? Because all of a sudden I'm seeing a film in a book. And I didn't want to go drive 2 hours to Burbank, work 10, 12-hour days and drive. Like, I didn't want to do that, but I was so disconnected from the storytelling, and I love story. And I thought to myself, I think like the, you know, Sky's part, this is what you're going to do with your life now. So I actually went back to grad school and sharpened my skills and took some classes like to convert understanding of storyboarding into, you know, how do you put together a page and then content. So I'd always kind of messed around with, like, I want to see a mystery, a supernatural mystery in a sleepy beach town. Like, because I love sleepy beach towns, you know, and there's all sorts of, like, I love Nancy Drew. I love Scooby-Doo. And then there was this show, and I don't know if you remember it because it was old when I was young, but it was called The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. And there was a movie and then there was a television show. And it was like back east somewhere, I think. And this was in black and white. And this woman moves into this, you know, creaky old house on a cliff, and it's inhabited by the ghost of an old sea captain. And he's super handsome, and they fall in love, but it's a ghost and it's a woman. And so, like, all of those things go into my soup pot as I'm like, what do I love? Because you know, I teach this in school. I teach animation at Cal State Long Beach. And you look at Cowboy Bebop or something like that, and you're like, how do they make something like that? They get a soup pot, and they're like, what is cool? Okay, bounty hunters, cool. Space is cool. Jazz, cool. Disparate elements come together and make something new, fresh, different, right? Like, ooh, the soup is yummy. So that is sort of what I was thinking. I'm like, well, what do I know surf. I know ocean. I know sleepy beach town. Strong, kick-ass girl protagonist, you know, with her best friend, solving mysteries, Nancy Drew, you know, and then a little bit of that paranormal romance, throw in my pirate ghost boy. Yeah. So anyway, that's how I got the stories going. Didn't know what to do from there. And I got an agent. I was trying to pitch it to, like, the kidlit world.
Now, did you have an agent because you knew people through animation, or did you literally have to just reach out and call?
Cold call. And
what was that process? Because everyone's always, that's one of the main questions is, like, finding an agent, like, how? So
especially unsolicited, right?
Way. It's like,
so nothing in life happens the way you mean it to, right? So I'm super convinced that if you're working hard over here, the opportunity comes from there. That is how my life at least works, right? So I'm reaching out because I've got, like, I've got the script written. I've got some sample pages, you know, like 20 pages of sample pages. I've got thumbnails. And I'm trying to get an agent. No one likes me. No one knows how to read a script, because when you write a graphic novel script, it's a film script. It's dialogue. And you send 40 pages of this to someone who's used to dealing with, like, 2 pages of children's book. Right. And they're like, what is this? So, you know, Raina Telgemeier had just hit with her Babysitters Club, and it was just kind of starting, and no one was really knowing, and I was not getting anywhere. And so anyway, getting the agent, I was trying to get an agent, and no one liked me. And then, so I have this little website, and I'm posting a page a week on this website. I've got, like, Sam's blog. I've got family photos going. I'm trying to build a little universe on this little website. And all of a sudden on Facebook, this woman pops up. She's like, I'm an agent. I love everything you do. like, I'd like to represent you, which is refreshing after like 17 people have told you, like, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think, don't ever call me again. And so that was fantastic.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
So we tried. She's actually my agent now. We tried and we hit a couple of different places. And then like in the weirdest of universes, she got called to go back to editing because she had been an editor previously. And she got called to head up an office for a new company that was in Manhattan. And she dropped her client list and went back to doing that. And I was like left stranded. And so what do you do? And I thought, well, I could put it out myself, you know, like people do that. And I have this group of friends from grad school who were published children's book illustrators. And they're like, no, you got to keep hammering. I'm like, no, don't tell me what to do. Cause that's what you don't do to Kim, is don't tell me what to do. I'm like, they're like, no, you can't put it out yourself. That's not right. I'm like, I can do whatever I want. I can sit conventions, put it out myself. So they said, look, you've got 2 weeks, put it out to 2 different people. And like, you know, Hail Mary pass. So I sent it to Top Shelf. I sent it to comics. I didn't send it to traditional publishing. And comics, like traditional publishing, has a lot of gatekeepers. You know, there's a lot of, well, I'll just say that there's a lot of gatekeepers. There's a lot of people who are like, no, I don't think so. There's a lot of that. But I feel like comics is a little bit more of like the mosh pit with your middle finger up. You know, they're like, right? So I just kind of I put together this box. I don't have it anymore, but I put together a box, 2 boxes. And I wrapped it in brown paper. And I have Surfer Girl paper dolls with Sam and like different wetsuits you wear for different seasons. And I
swap them out.
What's that?
You can swap them out.
Yeah.
That's great.
String, you got your full. You got you know. Anyway, so I've got all these little. So I paste them to the front of this. I rub sunscreen inside the box. And I sprinkle a little sand, make it smell like bleach. And I've got bookmarks and I've got stickers and I just put together the cutest freaking little package you've ever seen. I sent one to First Second. I sent one to Top Shelf. And I got a really nice note from First Second. And then Chris Staros called me and he's like, yes, let's do this.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
You gotta know that's where that was blankets, right? He was blankets. So like back in the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, full circle. It's all come around. So
that's amazing.
Dude. Yeah.
That's amazing. So when you're putting together your style that you picked for the book, how did you come up with how did you come up with that style? Because obviously the films that you worked on, the style is very different in all of them. So let's see about this one. Yes, I love it.
Thank you. It's got little pictures here. There's a little salmon seaweed. I don't know what to say. I've always there a long time ago I was teaching a character design class and I was playing along with my class and we were doing like shape comparisons. So we did I did the best friends and then we developed 10 other characters. And this was really early on, like preview of Surfside Land. You know, I had some characters that don't show up in this. I had a meter matron, you know, I just working on shape and character design. But these 2 girls kind of stuck. And then
so the meter matron's the villain, right?
It wasn't really. She was a fantastic character. Sometimes she'll have to resurface. She was awfully funny. Kind of like a grape on legs. You know those people?
That's probably one of the best descriptions I've ever heard of. I literally had 3 people pop into my head. I'm glad I didn't say their name.
Oh my goodness!
Was working because normally that just comes right out, and I'm like, oh, what?
Grape on legs.
Don't say mother-in-law, right? Don't say mother-in-law.
Grape on leg. No, she's like a model. My wife's a model, and her mom's a model. Like,
good choice there. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, good.
And like straight, like I'm working on the cover actually over here on of book 4. But I work in watercolor. I've always worked in watercolor. And
why that medium?
I don't know. It's slow and inefficient.
Yeah, I was gonna say because the others aren't they like even pen or like writing? Or
I know everything. Here's pencil. The French cover of book 2. Everything's everything's watercolor. Like it's all very soft, and it kind of like you can. I don't know. You can.
I mean, it fits the fact that it's an ocean and it's the water. So like,
yeah.
When I do this digitally, I can work digitally. It just doesn't look. It just doesn't do it. It doesn't. I mean, I don't want it to look, no offense to Image, but I don't want it to look like an Image comic. You know, like it's
right.
It's softer.
It's different.
And I'm painting water with water. So
Yeah, that's the part that's like,
cool.
okay, it's kind of, it bleeds with it, it goes with it, it's natural. So do they scan the image? So do you draw it, paint it, and then you scan it, and then that gets converted into a digital image, obviously, and then
correct.
that goes to print.
Correct. Yeah, we scan here. I usually have an assistant who will put my text in digitally. I made a handwriting font, and she'll put that in digitally,
Oh,
and
cool.
we'll take that file and send that PSD down to the server down at IDW, and then someone down there does some sort of magic and puts it all together.
A question for you, and then maybe Cam's got one. These are just popping in my head. You're doing you're doing a storyboard. So I have a script and I create a storyboard. Your storyboard is the final product, essentially. Do you have a storyboard for your storyboard? Like, do you pencil it in first, kind of your ideas, or do you go from the very beginning of the script and just go
I
straight
can
through?
show you right here because I'm 230 something pages into my last book, but I literally take a sketchbook. So this is the first pass. I take a sketchbook and I go through and I pencil into the sketchbook just like the page turns, right? So key with making a graphic novel is getting your flow going to the right and to your bottom right panel, because your bottom right panel is your page turn panel. So that's your question, that's your like climactic moment, that's your, so you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Oh, there's your answer. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? There's your answer. So your page turn. So you kind of so yes, it's a storyboard. So you're choosing your shots. Are you going to use an establishing shot? Are you in a long shot or a medium shot or a close up or an extreme close up? Or are you doing a 3/4 down to show? So all that stuff, but also knowing that you're trying to lead your reader across the page to that final bottom right panel for the page turn. So all of that gets worked out in that sketchbook. And then those all get scanned, compiled into a PDF and sent off to Chris Staros, who will he's super smart and he'll go through and tell me if there's a break in a flow anywhere, or if I have assumed too much and the reader is not going to catch that, because that happens a lot because it's in my head.
Yeah.
I know what's going on. But when you've got fresh eyes, you're like, whoa, logic skip here. You need to backtrack and fluff that out a little bit. So that's what he'll do. Once he sends that back to me, which should be by the end of this month, I will go to final pencil. And what I do then is my final pencil. So I've got this bizarre working process that I figured out. I take my final pencils and I scan them. I draw with a pencil so I get texture on paper. And then I have this oversized Epson printer, and I have tricked it into thinking that the paper I'm running through it is actually like paper that you print on to make a print, but it's actually Arch's 140-pound hot press. So it's watercolor paper. So I'm printing my sketches in archival ink onto watercolor paper, and then I just go straight on top of it, because it does a couple of things. One, I can screw up and reprint it. But knowing that I can screw up and reprint it means I generally don't screw up. I think if I knew I couldn't screw up, I'd be screwing up all over the place.
Right.
But knowing that I have that safety net. And number two, when you're penciling a lot and you're trying to keep that fresh animation, a lot of movement in your drawings, and it's with graphite, when you put water on it, it gets murky, right? Because the graphite comes up. But when I sketch printed, it's not an issue. So then I'm just rolling paint on top of it.
Fascinating.
Beautiful. What an idea.
Yeah.
And was that just a process of trying to figure that out? I imagine, to find out what's working.
Yeah. And I fought with the printer a lot, and I ended up cutting my paper exactly to size and calling it out as Epson watercolor paper, which is not paper to watercolor on. That's if you're trying to make an archival print to sell, so you can't actually work on that paper. But I'm like, ha. It's not that smart. No, you are that smart. You are. I don't want to offend, because then then
it'll get angry and then it won't print right. Yeah. Printers are the most fickle. They're you got to be very careful what you say around them.
I burn offerings. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would too. Yes.
So having this successful book series, tell us about the process of it being picked up by Apple TV. And was it easier for them to see, since it already is kind of a graphic novel and already almost in a format that is, what a TV treatment might be?
For sure. So, okay. So counting the weirdest days of my life, Here I am making comics in this little office, and then I get a phone call, and the person tells me that she's with IDW Entertainment. So IDW has both publishing and they have an entertainment arm, right?
Okay.
And so when I sold the book to Top Shelf is owned by IDW. And in the contract, it talked about your ancillary rights, which is your film, TV rights. And I was taught in grad school to not give them up. So we kind of had a little back and forth with Chris Staros. And I'm like, no, I know I'm not supposed to give these up. He's like, look, here's how it works. Comics make their money off optioning. Comics is not the big kidlit world. You're not going to have a book in, front and center in every Target and that's just not how comics works. So knowing that there's an option ability is really going to help you sell this. And so if we don't sign this, that was the spiel I got. And I'm like, okay. So knowing that, IDW Entertainment calls me and they're like, hey, we really like your stories. We want to take this out on the road to pitch. And so, I think I held off the screaming until I actually hung up. But I think I formulated words and sentences with this woman talking about like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. Right.
Yes.
So she says, I tell you what, we'd like to have a lunch with you. Okay. So I go up to some swanky place in like West LA or something, and I meet producer Paul Stupin, whose like thing was Dawson's Creek. And I'm like,
my sister was on Dawson's Creek.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. I'm sitting, they put me at the head of the table, and I have a salad in front of me, and I don't think I touched it. So I've got two writers. I've got Paul, and then Lydia, and then me, and
the salad. Don't forget the salad.
And I'm like, why am I here? Why am I here? And I think it was like an interview to see like, can she formulate sentences? Can she talk in front of people? And by the end of it, they're like, we'd like you to be on the pitch team. We'd like you to come with us. Which
it was an audition. You were literally
audition. Good thing I wasn't not solid and like dropping lettuce out of my mouth, because I had to go roll through Carl's Jr. or something, get myself a chicken burger. I was starving after that.
Like that scene in Splash. Remember that where she's in the restaurant, biting right into the lobster?
Yeah. You're like, yeah, Surfside Girls, real. She just ate the lobster, just shell and all.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I did. We went to Disney Channel and Disney Plus, and we went to YouTube, and we went to Amazon Prime, and we rolled around, and it ended up getting picked up by Apple, and it was, being on a pitch team was super. Why would I ever think this is my life? What I would never think.
What world? So we'd meet. We'd get downstairs and like go team, and we'd roll upstairs,
So anyway, a little bit of the inside. Well, it was just a really, really weird experience all around. I'll tell you, to be to see how well done these people do their thing, how well oiled a pitch is.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
So
talk about the. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No,
talk about the pitch process a little bit. What went into that?
Well, I went to the writer's room, and from what I understand, because I kind of came into this late, and I think my job there was to be the author saying like, yes, I approve this message, and not just that, but I was a beach lifeguard for the city of Laguna. Like I pulled drowning Marines out of 10-foot surf. I've surfed uppers and lower trestles. I've lived in the ocean for a very long time, and I understand the ocean. And I think they wanted that credibility because we're doing a thing about surfing, and there's always that thing like in animation where they've got the wave and they've always got the person surfing like on top of the wave, not in the wave. So I think they wanted to know like, she's from the sea. She eats the lobster with her very hands, So I think they wanted to see that, and they brought me along as that. So anyway, we would roll into like Netflix and greet the people and sit down, and it was like I said, it was sort of choreographed where this person laughs now, and that's a cue for that person to take over because everyone's got a part that they're talking about. Alex and Julie Diaz were the head writers. Julie studied acting in school, so it was really fun to watch. Alex would talk about like the setup of the show, and Julie would pop into character, and she'd do the Sam voice and do the Jade voice and do the Sam voice.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was fun to watch her work. And Paul Stupin, I think his thing, and what he told me is that he likes to take a location and make it a character. So he saw in Surfside what he saw in Dawson's Creek, someplace that you want to be. I want to make the place that you want to be. And so that was what he brought to it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I'll tell you, we had pitched it at Amazon Prime. We were at this place called Water Gardens, and we were about to go in for the pitch, and they go, "Oh shoot, we're gonna have to reschedule." And we're like, "What?" We just all got 2 hours each way. We all just got up here. What's going on? And they said, "Well, there's gonna be a fire drill," and we didn't realize. And it's immediately during your pitch.
Was this at Apple or
Yeah,
Amazon?
This is a little convoluted. But anyway, we pitched it to Diana Lau, who ended up wanting it at Apple. But we pitched it, and we were pitching it in oversized lawn furniture. Out in the, like, we decided to go outside, so we've got seagulls
In the environment.
honestly. And I think that's, so we pitched it to her, and she ended up picking it up, which was like super fabulous. Yeah.
Now, so as an author, a lot of the times authors, it's your baby, it's your characters, it's what you've lived with. And if you've ever optioned a book or a series or a film, once that option is picked up, essentially the director and the writers of the show, they take over and they'll use the parts that they want to use, and they'll change the parts that they want to change. What's that process like? Obviously there is some letting go in that process. And how did that work for you?
So it's a really good question. And I am very fortunate because it doesn't always go well. And for me, I felt it went well. And so it makes it easy when it goes well. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let me backtrack and say, I had to think long and hard about what was important to me. So what is important to me in my books is that I've got strong, brave, smart, fearless tween girls who solve mysteries and get in some danger. And they're out in the ocean, and they figure things out on the fly, and the danger is real. They're not, I mean, it's very hard to do a graphic novel about 12-year-old girls who sit on surfboards and bathing suits and not sexualize it. Like, I tried really, like, all the shots I put in my book are that these girls are strong, and you're not looking at them that way. You're looking at them as strong, brave, smart, right? Which that's a conscious choice for every panel I draw, is that we're not going to misconstrue this in any way. So that was very important to me. And I would tell them, just as long as you're not making them pot smoking hussies. Right. No pot smoking. Right? That was my. So then I think about that, like, that's important to me. Having the surfing be real is important to me because, and I told them early on in one of these meetings, I said, let me tell you why surfing. Surfing isn't just because, like, ooh, California is so sexy. Yes, it is. But it's also like, my dad was a Marine, and I grew up, I think I went to 7 different elementary schools and 3 high schools. So we moved all the time. The only constant in my life was the ocean, ever. In every place we landed, because he's a Marine, there was ocean, right? And so when I would get crazy, which I did a lot, because when you're the new kid all the time and you don't have friends and you're sitting at the table alone in the lunchroom, was with the story of my life, right? I would go to the ocean. And when I finally learned to surf, I would go surf. And that was where I found sanity. And that's where I let it all go. And that's where I fell in love with all of this thing. Right. And so I knew that is a healthy place for young girls to go. If you're, I mean, it's where I went when I was frustrated. It's where I went when I was anxious. It's where I went when I was sad. And also when I was stoked. Right. Like, so it became the place that I went. And that's what I told the show. I'm like, this is why surfing. I want the message to be that, when you've got to work out a problem, we have a huge problem with anxiety in young people. Go grab a board and paddle out. You sit out there and you're like, bam, all of a sudden things are better. It's natural, it's close, it's free. Grab an old board. You don't even have to surf, just lay out there. Maybe a dolphin comes by. You're like, this is the best day of my life.
Maybe a great white comes by. And that's the worst day of my life.
But anyway, that's so I gave those things to them. And I'm very fortunate that the people who like smelled the project America Young, the director of our first 2 episodes, she's like 6 foot tall Native American. She used to be a stunt woman. Like, there couldn't be any kick-assier woman in the universe. Like, she's moving and shaking, and then Diana Lau at Apple, and then May Chan, the showrunner, right? Strong woman. Costume designer Joyce Cam came on. When I went up to set, they would tell me, like, we were so attracted to what you're pushing, the agenda you're pushing, which is like strong, brave, smart, fearless girl in the ocean. It's not baby girl. It's not girl in a hot tub. It's that girl in between. And there isn't a ton for that, as I find out. And they were very attracted to that. So when
you know, it's interesting. I think that's actually in most girls. That's actually, if I think of a girl, that's probably more an accurate picture if you don't have all the signals bombarding girls from Instagram and all these things telling them they have to be this other thing. I think those girls, that's a girl. And in my mind, that's literally what you're capturing. I can't think of a more important message. My daughter, the same thing. I've always teach her what does the value come from first and foremost. It's the identification of who you are as an individual. In our case, I believe that, we are created by a creator. There's a reason. You have a purpose. You have a specific. You are important and special because you were created and you're here today for a time such as this. It's not an accident. And then the next thing is just about that characteristic of who you are coming out through what you do. And then it's also those other ancillary pieces that make you a girl or a guy or whatever it is. And I think that's such an important story. Like and that portrayal of a girl is healthy and good. And I think if a guy can understand growing up too, that's the most important part. That's the relationship underneath the original attraction. It's the thing that keeps a relationship going, because that person, that core of those girls, that's the part you fall in love with. The rest is they're like, oh, that's pretty. I'll go to that beautiful, shiny thing. And then the rest is like, that's who you fall in love with. That's who you marry. That's who you have a family with. Or, that's the relationships you build with girls that are friends that last forever. I can't think of a more important story right now than that truth. That's wonderful that you've done that.
Well, thanks. And I think, again, it's like we kind of write the stories we want to have read, right? Growing up. And I am fortunate enough, like, that I think Christaros recognized that in what he saw with what I did, but also this whole turn to live action, where it is so much more collaborative. Like, I know nothing about live action television. Why would I, right? Like, people don't wake up knowing about live action television, but there are so many players. The writing team, Alex and Julie, everyone had, when you have that go on a show, everyone has their little buy-in. So like you see with the show, they made Sam, who is kind of me, they made Sam Mexican American. And it took a beat for me to I look at that and I think, that's not me. But then I think, but what is important to me? Strong, brave, fearless. And if they were just doing it for no reason, that would bother me. But one of the writers had serious buy-in, wanted to portray strong, whole family, Mexican American family working together, right? And so why would I not value that importance to that person? And I don't care if her hair is brown, like that doesn't bother, not at all. And the other thing they did with Sam is that because my stories, the ghosts in my stories go back and tell us the history of California. So anytime they're in a mystery, they're kind of digging into who was here before me and what did they do here before me? Hey, there was a time before me, right?
History and mystery. I like it.
Also an important thing to me is to realize that there were people on this land before, right? And so by making her Mexican American, her abuelita, could have been on this land way longer than my people came rolling through, which, I'm just making a story about me. But when someone is crafting a story for television and they're looking for threads to pull, that makes some sense that they could go back into her memories from long ago. Makes total sense to me. So you ask, like, your initial question was it difficult for the choices they made? No. And I tell people, they say, it's not exactly like your book. Well, when you go to see a Batman film, you don't see the same Batman story every time, right? You see Batman and you see Commissioner Gordon, and you see that it's in Gotham, and there's going to be a Batmobile, and that there's
Mhm.
probably going to be one of a slew of these villains we all know, right? But it's not the same story. We, you know, like Scooby-Doo, we all get to the ending, right? And Batman's going to succeed or whatever. But it's sort of like the town I created, or what they call it, which I think is very cute, the sandbox. The sandbox I gave them that they played in, they kept it Surfside. And so it's a slightly different bit of a mystery, but
Right.
all of those core things that I felt important were there.
Are there any elements that have been maybe pulled directly from the page and then they change them, kind of like Marvel does with that? And how is that experiencing that? Like the story changes, but it's still like the same element.
Well, okay, let me give you an example. It was really cute going up to set, and the man who was head of sets, I don't know what they call that. His name was Gabor, and he's a very large Hungarian man. And he grabbed my arm. And he's like, "Come, I want to show you what I built." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you built my cave!" And I'm, you know, freaking out. It's okay, right? I'm like, "It's amazing." So when I see this cave, I've got a cave.
So he's the set designer.
Set design. Okay, super amazing guy.
Right.
He made the boardwalk. He made all these beautiful things. But he makes this cave with this glowing pool. And one of the things I had put into the book was this. I mean, the book starts out because the girls are having problems because Jade's growing up a little faster than Sam. Jade's giggling whenever boys are around. Sam's like, "Can we just go surfing already? And what is your problem?" And I remember that. I remember because I'm the oldest of my family. A lot of my girlfriends were the youngest of their family. So if they've got older brothers in high school and my little brother's in kindergarten, you know what I mean? Like they're ahead of me. And I was so irritated. I remember being irritated. And Sam's irritated until she swims through the cave into the magic world. She meets pirate ghost Robert, who's super cute and 14, you know, died tragically in a shipwreck. But she's like, "Ooh,
oh, I get this.
I get it. I see what you're talking about." So,
is that based on a real story as well for you? Personal story in a cave and you met a ghost?
I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting
for my ghost.
But
he's out there somewhere floating around waiting.
And the person's like, "You like him a little too much." I'm, "Well, shut up. He's my creation. I can like him as much as I want."
That's right.
But they took that romance out of the show. And so I see when they meet, they call him Remington Augustus von Roberts. I call him Robert. They call him Remy. They meet him and all of a sudden it's Sam. And for Sam, the fulfillment is she's like, "I knew there was more than meets the eye." And Jade doesn't see the ghost because she's not a believer, right? So she's like, "Okay, science says this can't be a thing." So that's where they've pushed Sam more artsy, more, and they pushed Jade more scientific and where's the data. And so, so I think, quite honestly, that describes a lot of Apple, is that art and science. And so they push these girls really heavily into those things. The conflict is there instead of the conflict being about boys. And I think they wanted to keep their friendship, you know, for the show, they wanted to focus on the friendship. And that made sense to me. That's okay. But it was weird to see that initial, you know, meeting in the cave and not have hearts aflutter, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what's interesting too is how you said even an idea like this in a graphic novel, how it translates from country to country, because this doesn't just sell in America, you sell it overseas. And I know you said even for the French, how your original cover you created was the beach, and then you know had tell me a little bit about that and how France is like, "What are you doing? Where's our beach chicks?"
I don't know why they're not on my shelf, because they're always on my shelf. My books are, but the original cover for this book here, Mystery at the Old Rancho, right? The original cover showed the rancho and it showed a ghost, and it was very California colors, and the girls are reacting to this ghost because, okay, let me go back. This book doesn't tell you anything about there's a ghost in it. So people buy it thinking it's about surfing, and it's, you know, backdrop is surfing, but really this is solving mysteries and historical with ghosts, right? So for I wish I had it right here, but for book 2, they're like, maybe give an indication that there's some paranormal. So I put like highly dramatic Mexican ghost girl Maria on the cover, because she's like what the story starts with. She's this hyper dramatic 14-year-old ghost girl. So I put that on the cover, and France is like, wait. We are selling bikinis in Southern California. So this is the cover I came up for France, right? So this is a completely French cover because they're like, ghost schmoes, we are selling Southern California. When we sell your books, that's what we want to see. And so I did another cover for France.
That's cool.
I think it came out great. I love this picture, but it's funny because it's very different than what I had previously.
Yeah, it's the interesting, the idea of wherever you live, you think it's the least interesting place on earth oftentimes, right? So when someone else wants to see just where you live, you're like, what? Here? Right here? They're like, yes, we want this. And you're like, yeah, but the story, the ghost, we got this. They're like, that's nice.
Yeah.
But the beach in Southern California, it's amazing. So yeah, so for them, that's a novelty. And for us, it's the backdrop. Like you said, it's the location. I always like that. I think that in stories, for me, the location is a character. It's always a character. And I think it's growing up in a powerful place like that, where the location, and like Maine, that had such, it was the backdrop of everything. And it was the reason why why we did what we did. Was because of location. So I always like that idea. And sometimes that backdrop informs the characters and it gives life to it. And 100%. The challenges arise from it. That man versus nature, man versus man, whatever those are. That element of nature shapes and molds the individuals that are in the story. And especially in your character's case, where they're experiencing firsthand the dangers and perils of location. I think it's great that that he sees that and takes that and makes that like such a strong character in the story.
Well, when my dad was a Marine, for whatever reason, they had this brilliant idea, because they're kids from Brooklyn, and they bought this house in Mission Viejo in 1971 for $17,000. And we lived in it for a couple of years and instantly went to Japan, right? We went to Japan, and we went to Florida, and then we came back to California after 5 years or so, and it was worth $100-something thousand. And they're like, holy moly, and it had grown exponentially. So for whatever reason, and I don't know if it's because they bought a house, it's the only house, so it was home. Southern California, home. So anywhere we rotated, when we go to Japan when I was in high school, I can't wait to go home, because there was a house here. And when you're a military brat, it's very tenuous, like your hold on anything. A lot of my friends became merchant Marines because they never had a home. Okay. They just floated around the globe, and they're not American, and they're a product of the planet, right? So we had this thing, and I think that's why it plays so heavily into my books, like this golden state. So when I was 9 and sad in Florida, because I miss something, I miss home, whatever home is, and home is here. And so it became I think in my childhood actually a little mythical, and so sometimes I say my books are a little bit of a love letter to Southern California. For that pull it had, I put so much into the science of surfing, so much into the creatures you see when you live here, like all these are like totally native little creatures. And it's all from here because there was a power. It is sort of, going west is sort of a mythical thing anyway. And for me, this was definitely the homing beacon.
Yeah, I had that same thing. I moved, I think 21 times growing up or something like this. And I was in 7 or 8 different states, and Maine was always, it's home. And anytime we would go back to where my grandparents lived, it's where so I know that feeling, and it kind of gives you the courage and strength to go out further. It's almost like, because there is a home. And I think it's the same thing about strong family. If you have a strong family and there's that sense of strength at home, then there's a courage and there's a greater courage to go out and fail, because you always know there's home. Yeah, you can return home. And so I think that's really great. And that nostalgia for that, it's never gone away. I mean, I haven't lived in Maine since 95 or 96, but it has not changed. When I think, I'm like, that's home. Home also shifts some too, in terms of there's like 2 homes: home, the physical home, and then home who you're with. And like for me, it's wherever I'm with my family, that's home. And home travels with you, but then there's also like that, but that's home. So both of them are important. It's really important. I think it's cool you got to experience that, express that in this story. Right now we're coming up on almost an hour, 50 minutes or so. Yeah, I know time flies because we love it so much, and it's such a joy having you, and an absolute delight experiencing your story and experiencing your characters. And thank you so much for sharing your joy with us, because it's evident It
So
comes
great.
through who you are. It comes through your characters. And I know Ariana's really excited about getting her book. Thank you so much for that. And I told her, I said, Ari, I said, this picture I saw, she goes, she's thinking about me sometimes. I said, she sure is. She goes, oh my gosh, I love it. So
I'm sure the show is also giving you a whole new fan base as well for the books, right?
Yeah.
And one more question real quick will the show, do you know if that will inform any future books, some ideas in that, or is it kind of gonna stay kind of separate?
It's hard to answer that because the answer is sort of both. And
Okay.
and like definitely I'm almost done with book 4, and it's definitely my Sam and Jade.
Right.
But when I see them breathing, they're a little more solidified. I don't know if that makes any sense. So I know them better because they're real. I don't know if that makes any sense. They're still in my universe and they still act the way they would, but
some characteristics or some attitudes or some different things might.
Just seeing them in action, just seeing those two girls interact and be real people, like it's sort of like my brain always knew that and said, see, look at them banter like I know they do. Really, in real life. That kind of comes back into this.
That's cool. All right. So where can people pick up the books and where can they see the show?
So the books are at your local indie bookstore. Perhaps you can find them at Barnes and Noble. They always have at least a couple, and they're on all the other things that you can order them on. And then the show is on Apple TV Plus. So go check it out. It is delightful.
Wonderful. Surfside Girls.
Yeah, you can hear right here. This is that show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, you're so welcome. Hey,
what's happening? I gotta kick it off the share. Stop sharing my screen.
There we go.
Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's delightful talking to you both.
Thank you.
All right.
Isn't it though?
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, awesome being able to see that. It's incredible when you get an idea. I think everyone who's a creative has this. You have a story that you want to share with the world. And I guess that desire is for somebody else to appreciate what you do, the story that you built, the world, the time that you've taken to do it. So when you finally get an opportunity, whether you get a book done or whether you're creating an article, a piece of art, when you have your first gallery and people are actually coming and appreciating and relating, I think it's even more like, oh, that's
relating.
Nice. It's more relating to it. Like that character's me. I know this story. I know that character. And you see that your work begins to impact people. It's so powerful and profound. And seeing something like this and watching people interact with Kim at her booth and seeing how they respond to the characters even before as a book, but then also now seeing the younger girls coming up, recognizing this banner, their eyes light up. They're like, oh my gosh, this is her. I know this is me. And it's just such a joy. And it's why we creatives continue creating. Like when you face all the obstacles and odds and why does she go to 25 different agents? And why do you go to 500 pitches? And why are you crazy enough to keep doing this?
Because the fire is there.
Yes, because there's other easier ways than just trying to make a book. Like it's
exactly.
And so then finally you get somebody's like, why do you do this? Because we're crazy. We're crazy about our story. We're crazy about connecting in our craft. So it's really exciting to be able to do that. But for those of you who are just joining us, like and subscribe to Entertainment Dudes on YouTube. And thank you for joining us on all of your other podcast platforms and for being a part of the Entertainment Dudes team. Until next week, I'm Jason Crossman, Director Dude.
And I'm Cam Cornelius. No, you're Jason Crossman, Grape on Legs. Look at your.
I'm Grape on Legs.
See that?
Oh, that's great. Right. Thank you for changing this.
It's been that way for a long time.
Why?
I don't know. I'm Cam Cornelius, voiceover dude, and it's been so great having you with us. Stay tuned next week. We're going to have more great entertainment information.
Ta-da!